Hey, what's going on, Clipper people? It is me, William the Opinion Updike.
And I am still positive Chuck Mockler.
And today we're talking about, can the Clippers get win number 2 against the Bulls? We got a game preview for you, talk about what we need to do well as what could go wrong in that one. It's also Thirsty Thursday. Every single Thursday, Chuck and I talk about who and what we're thirsty for, basically what we want to see more of. We're going to be talking lineups and, of course, more Paul George news. When can we stop talking about that? And then in Shavings, which is where we kind of wrap up everything else, there's kind of some fun Clippers stats that we want to talk about. So all that and more coming up right about now.
You are Locked On Clippers, your daily Los Angeles Clippers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome to Locked On Clippers, coming at you 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, 7 in the morning. Make us your first listen, kill some windshield time. It's always a good time. Mostly. Of course, I mean, hey, unless, we're not playing the Rockets or Lakers, apparently. So just to get some superlatives out of the way for Clippers versus Bulls, Brandon Boston Jr. remains out with a non-COVID illness. Hope he's doing okay. Paul George not on the injury report. We can kind of assume he's not going to play versus the Bucks because it's a back-to-back, right?
I mean, he won't play both games. Like, I would be very surprised if he played both games.
I don't want him to play both games.
I mean, it does beg the question, though, like, which game would you rather have him play?
Bulls. Let's get this win. Like, the Bulls game's easier to win. The Bulls are kind of weird right now. They haven't been consistent since the All-Star break. They're 6-11, and in their last 10, they're 4-6. So they're kind of coming on strong in the late stages of the season, I guess. They beat Cleveland twice, Toronto and Washington. They've lost to the Kings, Jazz, Suns, Bucks, Pels, and Knicks. Hard team to figure out right now. I was browsing Bulls Twitter. Shout out Matt Peck. And it seems like their fans are kind of confused about really what this Bulls team can do. So I don't know. Will, what do we need to do well to get the second win in the row for the Clips?
So I think a lot of this is going to come down to coming out with the defensive intensity early.
Please.
And maybe this means that there is like a shorter or smaller margin for error for Marcus Morris if he's unable to bring things early. Mm-hmm. Maybe this means, we wait, we are shorter with Reggie's rotations as well if he's kind of being completely anemic on that end, especially if the scoring isn't happening. But the Bulls, like you were talking about, have kind of petered a little bit, especially since the All-Star break. I mean, they're 11th in offensive rating, which, decent, just outside the top 10.
Sure.
20th in defensive rating. So I think, our best bet is obviously just trying to slow down that offense. And I think, assuming Paul George does go in this one, that they are not going to be able to provide a whole lot of resistance for us. But we just, I don't know how many times we're going to say it, but we just can't get into a thing where we've dug ourselves into, a 15-point ditch. Mm-hmm. Sometimes, just in the first quarter, and then have to climb out from there. So I think bringing that intensity early. What do you think we need to do well in this one?
I think we got to be able to get paint touches, right? So
yes.
Look, the Bulls are like missing Lonzo's a big deal. Levine looks also kind of not himself just after, he's just gone through some stuff. But if we get paint touches, we should be able to open things up for our shooters. Teams playing the Bulls take the second fewest three-point attempts per game at just under 32, which is kind of shocking. But they're shooting over 36%, which is top 5 in the league. Our starters looked a little unsure of the offensive flow versus Utah with PG being back, which makes sense, right? Like, just you can practice all you want, but in the game scenario, it's different. So I'm hoping we get some of those wrinkles ironed out. And man, like Morris has only taken 12 threes over the last 4 games, which is not a lot. Very low. So I'm hoping that opens up for the starters. And this feels like another night where we're going to see Paul George open things up for Kennard when they share the floor, which is going to be fantastic. Let's just get some paint touches. Good things happen when we touch the paint.
Yeah, especially if it's someone like Paul George or someone who's looking to facilitate a little bit more.
Yeah.
The other classic Clippers conundrum, second chance points.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, can we slow them down in that area? Like the Bulls are 30th in offensive rebounding per game. Hey, not bad. 29th in offensive rebounding percentage.
So
So like Yeah, they are not really looking to get those second chance sort of points. Defensively, they're about average in defensive rebounding, in total defensive rebounds per game. And they're like sixth in defensive rebounding percentage. So it might be a little bit more difficult for us to score second chance points of our own.
Mm-hmm.
But we gotta lean into this trend and grab those defensive boards whenever we can to eliminate those second chance opportunities.
Yeah, Zoo versus Vucevic is going to be a pretty big matchup. Zoo coming off kind of a pretty rough outing against Utah, and Vooch is coming off 27-5-4 versus the Wizards. So he's feeling it right now. We got to look out for that. And then going into
those two guys could sell like a weed kombucha together, like Zoob and Vooch's medicated booch.
Man, I would buy that 100%. And the other guy for the Bulls that can go off, he's been getting MVP talk this season, DeMar DeRozan. We know what he does. He goes off in the mid-range and he goes off in the paint in general. A lot of his shots come from in and around the circle or right at the rim. Like you talked about the defensive intensity. We have to assume they're going to be looking to put Marcus Morris in motion. So hopefully he's up to the task. Reggie can rebound from whatever he was doing versus the Jazz. And the weird part of this is the Jazz shoot 37% from three, which is third best in the league, but they take like 29 threes a game. So I don't know if those attempts...
Wait, the Bulls?
Sorry, the Bulls. Yeah, sorry. I don't know if those attempts will go up versus the Clippers, but if they do, I can't imagine that percentage holds. So if we just kind of stop DeMar, and by stop, I mean just kind of contain to like 20 points, less than 25, I think we'll be okay in this one.
So who do you want taking on that assignment?
That's a good question. I think I want PG.
I think he's ready. I think he's ready for it.
Hey, he looked ready for anything. I mean,
one game, he's good to go.
Yeah, he's gonna get another 5 steals or something like that.
Ty Lue was being a baby when he said he wanted 9 to 10 games ramp up for the guys originally. Recanted on that statement also.
Yes, he very much did. I think it's gonna be PG. They're gonna try and get Morris on him. They're probably gonna try and get Reggie on him. But this goes into the next question of what could go wrong is, will PG have to save us again? It was amazing watching PG put up 34 points, 20 of which came in the third to help the Clippers come back versus Utah. But it would be nice to have that happen again, right? We got spoiled in that return game. I just want him to look comfortable and just hope that he gets going early, right? I don't want us to need 34 points from PG. I want 34 points from PG. I don't want us to need them like we did against Utah because the offense can't figure it out and because the defense is just a sieve.
Yeah, definitely. We can't be putting too much pressure on those shoulders. This early.
Shoulders and the elbow now. And also, we didn't say this and what we need to do well. More Covington minutes. Give us more Covington minutes, please.
Definitely. Definitely.
What else could maybe go wrong?
Man, I am worried if we get another Morris showing like we got last night.
Yeah.
I talked about it a little bit and what we need to do well, but it was bad. And I feel like he's been up and down, but defensively, I feel like he has equivocally been not very good this season.
Yeah.
And, we've seen him able to ramp things up, in the playoffs before. But for a team that's kind of, prior to Paul George's comeback, I would say trending in the wrong direction.
Yeah, we're on a 4-game losing streak.
This is a crucial piece that he's got to figure out how things are going to work and how he can go back to being effective like we know he can be.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this is just a flash in the pan. I think offensively, probably from what we saw the other night, is a little bit of a flash in the pan, but he is one of those guys who is going to have to adjust probably not the most, but more so than some other players to having PG around. Like he's not going to get the same sort of touches that both the amount or in the same kind of like mid-range or post areas where he likes to get them. And you brought up the 3-point attempts, and I hope that goes up, and I hope that he's also can stay engaged in that role where sometimes, man, you are just going to be a kind of a gravity guy off ball who, it needs to be ready to like make the shot when it's there. But other times, like, you're gravity, like that's what you're all, that's what you are on the floor. So I'm just a little bit curious about that one because I just feel like it's been a while since we've seen like a complete Morris game.
Yeah, it's going to take some adjustments. I hope Hart can kind of Hart played so good against the Jazz. I hope he can keep that up against the Bulls. Real quick, yes or no, do the Clips get this win?
I'm hoping so. I'm thinking yes. I'm thinking they can do this one.
I'm thinking and then I think on Friday against the Bucks, it might not be must-see TV. Coming up, we're going to be talking...
That might be one where you just watch the box score.
Yes. Coming up, we're going to be talking Thirsty Thursday, just some lineups we want to see. Spoiler alert, a lot of PG and Rocco wants. But first, we got to give a shout out to NBA Top Shot. Will, you have thousands of Top Shots, correct?
Nearly. Yeah, nearly.
Close to thousands. Top Shot is the officially licensed NFT of the NBA. You can connect with passionate communities of NBA fans across the globe and build your collection from your favorite moments from NBA history. A guy on Twitter really wants us to join some Discord that has to do with NBA Top Shot. I've never been on Discord, but if someone gives me a free Top Shot moment, let's do it. Top Shot has evolved trading cards, made it easier to buy, sell, and trade by removing the hassle of card grading, shoe boxes, and binders. Their 24/7 peer-to-peer marketplace lets you scroll through all of your favorite players and teams. Once you find the moment you've been looking for, you can buy it in a couple of clicks. Owning NBA Top Shot moments can get you access to unbuyable, once-in-a-lifetime experiences. For example, last year, Top Shot flew out a group of fans to Phoenix for Game 5 of the NBA Finals just for having Phoenix Suns moments in their collections. That's so cool. The next week, a bunch of fans got to hang out at the NBA draft and talk to the Knicks' Obi Toppin. Head over to lockedon.nbatopshot.com to start building your collection today.
All right, so it's Thirsty Thursday. Every single week, we like to talk about who and what we want to see more of. And Chuck, what are we thirsty for?
We asked Twitter, the people are thirsty for more Paul George and Robert Covington, and who can blame them? If you love small sample size theater, you will absolutely love the one sample size we have of Paul George and Robert Covington sharing the floor, which is they're plus 24. So we've gotten one glimpse into it, and it's been a good time. It feels so surreal that we've only seen them on the floor once, and it happened during a 25-point comeback. But I cannot agree more. I think we may have said this on yesterday's pod, but Covington, if things kind of continue to trend this way, should start in place of Marcus Morris. Or is that too big of a leap?
I don't know, man. I really like the utility of Covington coming off the bench. I just think that he and Hart are such complementary players to each other's skill sets as well. Fair. I do really like that in the front court, but I do see what you mean. And like, I guess that's kind of what I was alluding to in the last segment of like, I don't really care who the starters are. Like, I do not care. I just think the thing that needs to happen is, like what Ty Lue is known for and what we know he can do, which is just maybe the rotations for some guys are shorter.
Yeah.
And maybe their first shift, if it's not going well, we just kind of pull the plug early.
Yeah.
And I understand.
Because he played when it mattered versus the Jazz, which is what was great. Like that doesn't happen with our last coach.
Yes.
So that's a good point. I like, as long as Reggie, PG, and Zoo are starting, and I guess Batum. So as long as 4 of the 5 guys that I just mentioned are starting, I'm happy with it. Because like Morris also does have some gravity to him, like we just talked about last segment. He's a much better scorer than Robert Covington. Covington does seem to kind of thrive in this like efficiency role, which is not really Morris's game right now.
I mean, classic 3-and-D guy. Like that's exactly what he's good for.
Yeah.
He can kind of speed things up in transition. He does have some other like little things to his offensive skill set, which are valuable. But yeah, I don't know. I just think that it makes sense if you're going to have Hart on the floor in minutes that actually matter. And I don't care like if that means regular
Very good
season. I don't
point.
care if that means playoffs, like whatever. If you want Hart on the floor in minutes that actually matter, I do think that Covington is probably the best supplemental piece to that. Maybe
That's a
Batum,
good point.
but Batum, I feel like we've seen get frustrated a lot recently. And I don't really think that it's going to do anything for like his vibes to have to play a bunch of minutes next to Hartenstein. So
that's a really good point. I hadn't thought of that, but I am now taking that into consideration in real time. Also, a note on Batum. I was walking around Staples Center during halftime, and he kind of tweaked his ankle a bit in that game against the Jazz, and he was talking to a trainer, and the trainer was like, "Can you move it?" And Batum said, he said, "Can you move it side to side?" In a very frustrated French accent, Batum said, "I'm trying." So I hope there's not really an ankle watch with Nick Batum. But in terms
it
of
seemed like he was good to go later in that game.
yeah,
so.
he looked great. We also got a lot of man, PG, Batum, and Rocco plus whoever else. Does that core four kind of feel like the closing lineup? Or at least I will say what I think 3 of them, Paul George, Batum, and Rocco, should be in the closing lineup. Do you think Terrence Mann's part of that 4?
I think it just depends. I mean, I still think you want an actual guard on the floor. Like,
throw Reggie out there, make it a small
it
ball
just gives
5.
you I feel like it just gives you a little bit more versatility with Paul George, where he doesn't have to be like he doesn't have to be setting the table every single time, because there are going to be games where, I mean, there are going to be games where he might not have it going offensively, and that's fine too. But in games where he is, and he's really having to do a lot, to do that, plus like be expected to try to set everybody else up. And we've seen Paul George sometimes, and even in high leverage situations, when he's getting heavily blitzed or something, that's when we see the turnovers pop up. And so I think that it makes sense to still, like, I like man, and I like this 4. I am probably still adding a guard to this. And then you have like a small, medium kind of lineup. It's medium ball.
Yeah, goofy ball.
Yeah. But I like this. I like this core 4. Who, if anyone, do you bump from this lineup when Norm gets back?
Man, what if we just add Norm to this lineup?
I mean, I'm okay with that too. But once again, like,
a lot of
still
tweeners
not like
in there for the guards.
Still not like, a prototypical point guard. But I mean, I like it. I'm not mad at it. I would, love to see more of it. Love to be a part of one someday.
Yeah, closing lineup. Speaking of kind of goofy closing lineups without a true point guard, Joseph Fry Award was kind of in the trenches on Twitter with this take. Shout out Joseph Fry Award. Shout out Brian Cullen. Shout out the Clipset Pod. Go support their Patreon. He said he wants to see PG, Amir, Batum, Morris, Rocco. I love this idea. This is a very theoretically fun lineup. Paul George has a lot of responsibility when it comes to ball handling with this lineup. But the funny part of this, before we kind of get into like what it looks like, is that everyone kept replying to Joseph Fry Award about what they would do differently, which is really funny, because our prompt was just like, what do you want to see? Like, it was just like, what lineup would you like to see? And everyone was truly only correcting Joseph about this. He texted me that this was his Joker origin story, so I hope Joseph's doing okay. But this kind of begs the question, like, what do Amir's minutes look like right now? Like, it's a little wonky with
28 seconds per game. We're doing everything in this segment on a 1-game sample size.
What do you think of this lineup? I love this idea. If Amir's playing well.
I kind of felt like last game, especially in that first half, there are times where I would have liked to see Amir maybe out there with some combination of Paul George and Kennard.
Yeah.
So you have some other offensive kind of lift if he, if he's not doing his thing.
You got that spark that Amir gives, just that energy, like kind of all around.
That's what I mean. And like, defensively, like effort wise, like he's gonna be there. So I'm interested in this. Like, is it a closing ready lineup? I wouldn't go that far.
Probably not. Yeah.
Is it something I'd like to see? Of course. I love a I love 4 forwards plus whatever. What else you got?
Yeah.
You want a center? Fine. You want a guard? Fine.
Luke?
You want a guy who's kind of nothing, like kind of just in between everything? Fine too.
Yeah, that's so. Our buddy Arno Madathian, shout out Arno. Haven't conversed with him in a while. Oh, we gotta get another a Path donation bet going. For that. Shout out Path. Arno had this one where he goes, you got Kennard, PG, Batum, Rocco, Hartenstein.
I'm a fan.
I'm not mad at that. It's very similar to what got us kind of out of the jam last night, which was Reggie, Luke, PG, Rocco, Hart. Hartenstein, he's gotten so much better since Paul George has been out. Like, he's had some ups and downs. I'm not saying that at all, but it feels like he's kind of on the upswing right now. And I think we're going to see him really get opened up with Paul George out there.
It's interesting because, for a team that, like I said, prior to Paul George coming back, was kind of trending in the wrong direction, a guy who had kind of been up and down this season, we've been low on, for a while, is trending in the right direction. And then you add PG and they seem to have some sort of chemistry there.
Hart has chemistry with everyone. Hart and Zoo have this thing.
He really,
where it's like they can both play with everybody, which is another reason why we should just definitely bring Hart back. But yeah, for sure.
Yeah. No, I'm not mad at that at all. I mean, like, once again, you are kind of tasking Paul George with like more playmaking, a lot of playmaking, but you do have Hart out there who can do some interesting things. Batum can move the ball around. I guess its effectiveness would kind of come down to, how much Paul George can do that before they just start blitzing Paul George, and then B, can Kennard give you anything sort of off the bounce? Yeah,
which from one game,
if he can, I mean, then like, hey, you're having some fun out there.
And from one game, he has. So that one game sample size is really pulling a lot of weight right now. It's crazy what one, top 10 player can give you in terms of lineup versatility. Coming up, let us know your favorite lineups, possibilities over at Locked On Clips. Coming up, we're talking play-in opponents. We're talking Kawhi's new sneaker colorway release. But first, Will, if I wanted to bet online for college basketball's biggest tournament, where the heck could I do that?
You could do that at Bet Online. It's right there in the name, buddy. It's that time of year again. We all love the college basketball tournament, and it's finally upon us.
Finally.
And Bet Online has you covered from all the latest odds, contests, and player props. BetOnline.net is the #1 source for all your sports betting needs and info. Bet Online remains the best spot for all your sports scores, podcasts, and news this season. And it's not just basketball, folks. Bet Online is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information needs, including live betting and your favorite Vegas casino games. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. Bet Online, where the game starts.
Big shout out to Bet Online. All right, welcome to Shavings, where we just kind of talk about random stuff around the Clippers sphere. Here's an insane stat that we missed last night. Couple of stats. The Clippers are the first team in the last 25 years to have 4 24-point comebacks in one season. Missing, obviously, Kawhi and PG for the majority of the season. The most 25-point comebacks in the play-by-play era. 2021-22 Clippers, 3. 2018-2019 Clippers, 2. 1, everybody else. 53 teams. This is a fun stat, but I really hope we're never on this list again. Is that fair?
Yeah.
I never want to be on this list again.
It's interesting, and even when healthy, I felt like at times this team could, be a slow starter, which is kind of interesting. But it makes sense that like the 3-2 is like 2020, the 21-22 Clippers, and the 18-19 Clippers. And we kind of talked about on yesterday's episode about how, these teams are kind of starting to be more and more similar. In terms of like where they rank in like Clipper fan lore. Right. And this team, absolutely overachieved, without Kawhi, without Paul George, without Norm. And yeah, man, it's good to have Paul back, but it's still pretty crazy what these guys were able to do.
Yeah. It's I mean, there's still 6 games left.
What if after this season, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I mean, my hopes of this are diminishing every single day, but like, what would happen? Like, I feel like the NBA would lose its mind if we got all 3 back at some point during the playoffs and then ended up like making a damn go of this thing.
Oh, we're gonna. That's the timeline's there, man. Norm Powell's coming back to practice. He's gonna be ready for the play-in. Kawhi is doing whatever explosive box jumps, assertive
would it
lunges.
change the way? Like, would it change the way players play? Like, they'd be like, "Oh man, these guys want a chip after playing."
I mean, Kawhi already has.
They only played playoffs.
I think Kawhi already has ushered that in, where Kawhi has to be like, I want to rest my body so I'm good for the playoffs. Like, he has less career points than Danilo Gallinari.
Yeah.
Which is a trip to think about, like, in terms of regular season. But it would be so funny if they were just like, wait a minute, teams are just using these play-ins to bide their time for their guys to come back. Because the way that the Clippers win a chip is exactly what we're going through right now, which is everyone just shows up like in the first round, and then it's just, oh shit. Then it's the actual, every year we have this conversation, right? Like, oh, this 8 seed is a problem. This is an 8 seed.
Oh yeah,
that any other year would be a 1 seed. Like dumb shit like that. But it's actually real this year. If everyone comes back for the Clippers, this is the only time, and this is a big caveat, if everybody comes back for the Clippers when they are an actual 8 seed, it will be the only time when it's like, this 8 seed's a real problem. I think that's
true.
Fair.
It will be the only time that phrase is like actually valid.
Remember everyone thought the Blazers were going to be a problem as 8 seed and they just sucked ass?
Like, this is the conversation every single year. I just feel like every single year there's the team that's like, oh, they actually dealt with X, Y, and Z.
People forget that the worst team in the playoffs is a problem. Like, no, they don't.
Like, I mean, I guess like
they're an 8 seed. Speaking of play-in stuff, there's still some weird fluctuations to possibly happen. So the Wolves are 2 games back of the Nuggets and Jazz. Denver and Minnie, as of this recording, I should say, which were taking place at 6:57 p.m. March 30th, whatever date it is, the day before this comes out. Denver and Minnie have kind of easier than average remaining strength of schedules, with Minnesota playing some really good basketball. I think Jokic also just put up like some absurd stat line tonight. The Jazz, however, are crumbling in every way possible. Everyone hates playing on that team. Quinn Snyder's pants are too tight. No one's passing Rudy Gobert when Luke Kennard's guarding him for some reason. And they have the 7th hardest schedule to go. There's a non-zero chance that we see them. It's close to 0, but it's non-zero. I mean, Jazz in the play-in is what we want, right? Like, if it gets to half, like, if we see the Jazz in the play-in game.
You want the Jazz over the Timberwolves? I don't know about that.
Yes. I want this shitty, fake, not serious Jazz team in the play-in so bad. They hate each other.
Yeah.
They all hate each other. They didn't correct any of their mistakes. Their mistakes were, we have one elite defender and everyone else really sucks. And they were like, let's run it back. Let's do that again.
We're getting the band back together, guys.
You would take Minnesota over Utah? I think we probably will end up facing Minnesota. But
I think I would. Yeah, I think I would. And, it's still not an easy out, and anything can happen, obviously, in a single game.
I just might be high on the win last night, too.
That's where, I mean, like, narratively, I love it if, like, somehow the Jazz, this team that was like a 1 seed 2 years ago, but, doesn't even make the, like,
loses to the Clippers in the play-in
this year,
and then, like, loses to the Pels like, after that, like, in the neck, Jazz. And then finally, Kawhi has another sneaker release. These just seemingly flying so far under the radar, called the Palmistry. It's just a black and white version of his new shoe. The reason I bring this up is because everyone should go look at the picture of Kawhi advertising these shoes. It's just him holding the 2 shoes by his strings with his hand out, just like putting psychic powers onto the shoes. And someone
Love
tweeted
it.
out that every picture you see of Kawhi is the funniest picture you've ever seen. And these ads make that true. Like, everyone, please go look at them.
He clearly like has a good sense of humor, and like for how like guarded and quiet he is, it appears that he doesn't take himself super seriously off the court.
Yes, he is. Man,
which to me is, you know, just another reason Kawhi is like a top 5 player in the NBA and like a great.
We just don't know what he's doing. Like, and it's awesome.
It's in this like day and age, it is. I don't know. It's pretty interesting. It's pretty wild.
I feel like Kawhi, like after he retires, is just going to be like, just going to a bunch of farmers markets. Like, he's just gonna be a regular ass dude, just like at the farmer's market, maybe at Ralph's.
Oh yeah, I don't know if it's farmers markets, but you'll definitely like catch him online at Wingstop. Like he wants to dine in, so he's not even like in the drive-through. He didn't call in an order ahead of time. He's just there.
He's like, "Can I get
just
a 10 piece?" They're like, "Are you Kawhi?"
Maybe he's at that one in the South Bay that serves beers.
Man, okay, if you're listening to this right now, all right. Welcome to Locked On. Welcome to Locked On establishments that don't usually serve beers but do. Here's 2 places you need to go. There's a Wingstop in the South Bay that serves pitchers of beer. It might still exist. I hope it does. There's also, last time that I checked, which we've been to a couple times. We watch playoff football at this next place. There's a Subway sandwiches and the Bonaventure Hotel that also serves pitchers of beer in downtown Los Angeles. That's a good time. No one's ever there. Bit of a weird vibe. It can get rowdy.
And the people who are there are hotel guests.
Yes, the people that are hotel guests. And like, it was like Will and I and another buddy watching like a playoff football game, like getting like pitchers of Modelo were like $12. Like, it's like nothing.
Oh, they are temporarily closed now. Man, hope that doesn't stay.
Wait, which one's closed? Wingstop or Subway?
The Subway and the Bonaventure.
All right, well, shit.
I mean, I haven't been post C word.
C word. Oh, COVID. Corona. I was like, whoa. Either way, let us know if you've been to either of these establishments. We will, I don't know, start a cool club called people who like to drink beers at places they don't usually serve beers.
Places that usually don't serve beers, serving beers.
Places that maybe shouldn't serve beers. All right, either way, we're getting off the rails. Friday's episode, recap of Clippers versus Bulls. Got a preview of Clippers versus Bucks. Then, of course, a Love, Marry, Quarantine, everyone's favorite game. Will, if someone wanted to review this podcast to give us 1 or 5 stars, where could they possibly do that?
So you can review us over on Apple Podcasts or the podcast app on your mobile device. We're also on Spotify. You can leave ratings and reviews there. It would really help us out. New feature, get the show some visibility. Come on. You can also listen to us on either one of those platforms. You can listen to us on Google Podcasts. You can listen to us on Amazon Music. We're on Stitcher. We're on Deezer. Basically, anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can listen to this podcast, and you should do so. We mentioned up top, I think, but we come at you Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific.
I'm 90% sure we did. Let us know if you had a picture at that Subway or that Wingstop. I have been Positive Chuck Mockler.
And I am William the Opinion Updike. And as always, we appreciate you.